I guess the message is that the world is changing and youth and children are asking and needing much more of us. And our individual responses as institutions and as individuals is not enough.
Youth is kind of a new sector in the sense that there's a lot of people working on children, a lot of people work obviously with adults, but this transition phase from childhood to adulthood often gets overlooked. These symposia are an opportunity for young people, donors, practitioners to come together and discuss the issues affecting young people locally, globally, regionally.
We believe these days there's a lot of activity out there, and what we're trying to do now is to bring some coherence to that in a way we hope is helpful to the practitioners and to young people themselves.
We're going to have these same symposia all over the world on a regional level, working with our stakeholders, hearing what youth think themselves about what needs to be done, what policies affect them, how do they feel about them.
The Youth Policy Symposia we've had here in Washington is about working with policy for young people in conflict zones, post-conflict situations.
The idea about this particular symposium is to update the field about what's going on.
We had donors talking among themselves, practitioners talking among themselves, and academics and scholars talking among themselves. Then we brought them together in mixed groups to talk to each other and see what you can learn from each other.
What's changing? What's changing in our world context?
The symposia are meant to be very interactive. They're not meant to be like a typical academic conference where people will present papers and then people will comment on the papers. It really is to bring people together to discuss these issues in a dynamic way. What does it mean to engage at generational level?
It means that rather than sort of saying, okay, I'm going to work with these 25, or 2,000, vulnerable kids, is about saying, how does actually a generation as a whole influence the conflict dynamics that are unfolding?
There isn't always a place where you can all come together and have a serious step back, where are we, and assess. And that time to assess is where the ideas are made to move us forward. It's so important for practitioners to have the opportunity to talk to donors and say, why aren't you doing this in a safe place? Because usually it's all about grabbing money. And vice versa, for donors to say, academics, we want to fund these projects, but we don't have the research. Where is it? Why aren't you filling this gap?
Most of the time you hear practitioners complaining about what donors are doing and what they aren't doing. And for the very first time I heard the donors say, okay, if there weren't donor regulations practitioners, how would you do things differently? And I think it created a lot of self-reflection.
Engaging, helping think through, understanding what the constraints of donors are, because they have them, right? And it would be easy for us to just say, oh no, you got to do it differently, you're doing it all wrong.
Yesterday there was Noel from Open Societies Foundations made a comment regarding monitoring and evaluation, and he's raised important skepticism that we're focusing so much on results, that are we doing creative programming? And are we only doing programming we know how to measure? And I think that led to an important conversation about how we can balance the need to show results with trying new things.
The next symposium we're doing is on the concept of youth rights. There really aren't that many specific charters looking at the rights of young people as distinct from children or adults. The following symposia will be on the concept of the youth bulge. It'll be focused on East Africa, which has a disproportionate number of young people. In many countries, that's seen as a threat. We're trying to look at it more as a demographic asset.
What we'd like to add to the format is now a clearer voice of some representative youth, so that there are young people who can come and articulate to us the way the policy impact has worked for them, for their peers, and also the role they might want to play.
I get the sense from some of you that for you this is kind of a turning point, that this is some sort of culminating moment, perhaps moving on to something bigger.